What is good, everyone? Welcome to this edition of The Views from the 573. It is Super Bowl week, everybody. We are finally here, the culmination of the 2025 season, happening down by the bay. Super Bowl XLIX, Patriots versus Seahawks. If that sounds familiar, you may remember a certain Super Bowl that ended with a big-time interception years ago. We got that matchup here down by the bay. And it's going to be it's an exciting week leading up to Super Bowl week. We got that going on. We got the coaching carousel chaos, which we were just talking about pre-show. It's just it's craziest it's ever been. I am joined by Matt Mormann as we talk about all this coaching carousel nonsense and all this everything Super Bowl. Matt, how you doing?
So Ryan, I'm doing great. I hope you're having a lovely time. You mentioned the previous Seahawks Patriots Super Bowl, and that instantly brought back two memories for me. And I want to ask you about kind of where you're at on those. So number one, you were living in Caruthersville during the last Super Bowl, that between these two teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
So WPSD, Channel 6 out of Kentucky, my once upon a time employer, they were broadcasting the game.
Mm.
Do you remember something that happened during the Super Bowl for us?
Oh no.
It may not have happened to you if you were watching via cable, but I know for sure for us, the transmitter exploded.
Oh no.
And I remember it was on a pass where I believe it was Brady threw an interception on that play. And like the ball is like mid-air, and a Seattle defender like on his way to it. And yeah, and it just froze. And it was and like me and my roommate Scotty, we sat there just like refreshing Twitter for probably a good hour, hour and a half. I think we missed the rest of the first half. Um, yeah, and so that's one thing I definitely think about when I think of that Super Bowl was the transmitter explosion that occurred. The other thing, Ryan, is spoilers for any predictions. This is not a serious prediction, so there's no real spoilers here. But here's how I want this game to end. I want the Seahawks to be down at the goal line, Ryan, and I want them to line up in just the most obvious run formation possible. And I want everyone in the building to know they're going to run the football. And then I want them to run the football four straight times from the goal line. And I want them to get stuffed and lose the game because they didn't throw the ball.
It's funny that you having this kind of like playing out things differently this time around with this matchup. I was kind of like in the same mindset, like let's play around with things differently this time, and let's just say, I don't know, the Patriots are driving, they're driving, then all of a sudden we got
Oh,
a big time interception by the Seahawks, and that clinches the game. So I went the other direction
okay.
there with that one, but I think it's funny that we both kind of have the same thoughts, like, let's do things a little bit differently here.
Well, because I have been defending that play call for 10 plus years now.
Yeah, right.
I think that play call was perfectly fine. The defender just made an amazing play. It is such a bang, bang, amazing interception, right? Um, and so yeah, I kind of wanted to do the opposite, run the football, and it not work.
Oh man, wouldn't it be something? Wouldn't it be something if one of those things happened? Oh goodness. No. Well, like literally, we joke about the NFL script writers, and that would be a good thing to point to.
If
Like, hey, this
if
like script
if
was
if
written.
this were Marvel, there would definitely be a lot of callbacks and winks for sure.
Yeah.
Malcolm Butler would be an alternate captain. They would probably have who's broadcasting the game? Is it NBC?
Yes.
So McCourty's for sure gonna be on pregame.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they'll definitely do some things then for sure. Yeah. They'll definitely be some stuff.
Yeah. So I definitely on our prop bet sheets. I definitely had something about like the callbacks to that Super Bowl and the Malcolm Butler interception. I definitely wrote some of that stuff down because it's too perfect not to bring up at this time. Being a big one. This is the 60th Super Bowl. It's this rematch. I would imagine that's going to get brought up a ton. So we're going to talk about this Super Bowl here in a little bit. First off, we got some coaching news to talk about, and as we kind of touched on earlier, just an insane amount of coaching moves being made. Uh, Matt's Ravens, my Titans, we both made hires, getting new head coaches. Lots of other teams have filled their spots. We had some more pop up, including the Bills one with Sean McDermott. We got potentially Clint Kubiak, who's the OC for the Seahawks, potentially working on a deal to become the Raiders' next head coach, which then I believe that leaves Arizona's job as I think the only one remaining. But I was telling Matt pre-show, I saw this insane stat of how much the landscape of coaching has changed with these openings. You have 10 new head coaches coming in. That's about a third of the league. 19 new offensive coordinators, 15 new defensive coordinators. I'm sure that number will change once Kubiak gets hired by the Raiders, and then that number will go up. But as of now, it is an insane amount. And man, I was telling you this, like this is something we have never seen before in this league, and this league's been around a long time. So when we say we have never seen this before, it's something to take note of.
Yeah, and I think that this is almost a extension a little bit on how we've seen teams handle quarterbacks a little bit, right? Like teams
Mm-hmm.
don't have that same patience they once had, right? It's very much win now, win now, win now. And I don't necessarily disagree with that being kind of the mindset. Like this is a league where things flip very quickly. Look at this year's
Yeah,
playoff field.
yeah.
And so I totally understand not giving these guys time. Um, I wish I had up a list of all the teams who had vacancies and see if there's any kind of a through line there. 2025 NFL head coach.
Well, I was gonna say,
Um,
I was also gonna say, like, just like take a look at the Super Bowl. You got
well, because
Vrabel in year one
yeah,
and Mike Macdonald in year two.
well, and I do feel like too, a lot of these coaches who got let go, either they were like kind of never was guys, or they were guys who were there for a while, right? You think of a Tomlin, you think of a Harbaugh, you
Yeah.
think of a McDermott, right? They all had plenty of chances. The guy in Atlanta, Raheem Morris, right? He had chances before this. So like some of those guys were older guys. Maybe this is a bit of cycling that group out a little bit. Obviously, Harbaugh got another job, and I'm sure McDermott will next year. But maybe it's a bit of that though, a bit of like, hey, these guys have been there for a while. It's time to cycle that out a little bit, bring in some fresh blood. I think it's hilarious that Mike McCarthy gets hired in the midst of all of this. And I also think it's pretty hilarious that the Bills just decided to go with their offensive coordinator. I
Yeah.
don't fully understand that one at all. I think that's maybe my most puzzling hire. Um, Not necessarily the worst hire, but just most confusing. I think there's a bit of a difference there. Because it's like, okay, well, if you're wanting to change some things here, I get it that you were more happy with the offense than you were with the defense, but like you got to change what you're doing on offense too. Allen had what twice as many, I think more than that, twice as many or more sacks this year than last year. James Cook was a bell cow, but outside of that, the offense has just not been clicking. And
Mm-hmm.
so I kind of thought there'd be more changes. Maybe they want to keep some of the staff in place on the offensive side. So you just promote the guy. I don't know, Ryan. I thought the Bills one was really weird.
I think that's kind of what I'm thinking too. Is that they just want to keep that side together. Like it just seeing the uptick in the run game, and Josh seems to like him. So I think you keep them around, keep that offensive staff around. But I mean, yeah, I mean the offense besides leaning on Josh and leaning on James Cook, they had their struggles this year. And one thing to take note of, I mean, you're losing potentially a couple guys on that offensive line. That's been really good for you. So you're going to have to do some retooling there and adding some resources to that group. So I'm with you there. I was kind of confused by that. I kind of wondered, okay, would they go Dable? Would they go Davis Webb? That's another guy that Josh Allen is cool with. Would uh, you know, and Brady, and I think there's a
Well,
couple other names, but yeah.
Ryan, if you don't mind me hopping in on you there, I guess it's almost a question for both Bills, Ravens, and I'd say Steelers as well. How much do you think the quarterback opinion should matter?
Hmm. I don't know if it mattered much with the Steelers. I would say in this case, I don't know if it mattered much. maybe.
I think it may have. I don't know. I just feel like it's a little weird that Aaron Rodgers, who is Mr. Here's my opinion, whether you're asked or not, Mr. I want to play with all my old friends. He hasn't retired. There's been no news on that. It kind of sounds like, I'm getting more and more vibes he's coming back for another year. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is totally just coincidence, but um, you know, they happen to hire the coach that he was with for a number of years, not the coach who drafted Jordan Love, and that was Matt LaFleur, right? So like Happy Rogers had times with Mike McCarthy. I find that to be just I don't know. I can't imagine there wasn't some kind of conversations. But I don't know. I think it's interesting that we see like we're getting more and more of the quarterbacks' opinions carrying some weight.
Yeah, it kind of feels like, with NBA guys, having that player empowerment movement and just like, hey, here's kind of like some ideas I have. Here's kind of like what I want, and being involved in trying to get, a coach there. Maybe it's not as prominent in the NBA, but it definitely feels like it's something you see in both kind of leagues. Like your star player kind of like having a hand and having an opinion on who they want, who they want to come in to coach them.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Bisciotti said as much for the Ravens, that Lamar was going to be involved in the process, and I would imagine Lamar's also going to be heavily involved in the offensive coordinator process.
Yeah.
I haven't really seen too many names
Um,
being brought up in that regard so far.
I did see they hired Declan Doyle from the Bears.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Duh, I did see that. The passing game coordinator from the Bears. Yes. So, hey, obviously good things happen there with Chicago. I don't know his history at all, though. So I don't know what his track record looks like, but Bears offense this year was fun. Ben Johnson, hey, if you can pluck an apple off of that tree, that could be something.
Yeah, especially with the run game and how Ben Johnson seems to like lean on that run game.
Yeah,
Yeah. Doyle was the passing game coordinator, so he didn't have as much hand to do with the run game. But I'm sure he saw, just like
you
how
were
Ben
there.
was able to scheme it up. But yeah, almost all the head coaching positions have been filled besides the Cardinals and the Raiders officially. It does seem like Kubiak is going there. So the Cardinals are the lone team out. Poor them. Nobody wants the Arizona Cardinals. So um, they're being left out to dry. But our team's made hires.
I was gonna say, Ryan, how are you feeling about the Robert Saleh hire?
I mean, I'm happy it's not Matt Nagy.
Aren't we all? Wasn't that just the biggest concern?
Yeah,
Like
I
I
was
have
like, oh, thank goodness.
Jesse Minter was number three on my list, and it was a very positive number three. Um, Gosh, I'm just so happy it's not Matt Nagy. Oh, that makes me so happy.
I feel like you and I can both celebrate with that. Just like it's not Matt Nagy. Oh
Yeah,
man.
that
Um,
really was the big worry.
yeah, I know it was the worry with Mike, considering the Borgonzi connection with them working in Kansas City. So I was a little bit worried about that. But with Salah, I kind of feel like I'm more on board with what he's going to be able to bring. I think he's learned from his Jets experience, and also he doesn't have Zach Wilson as a quarterback here. That kind of derails a lot of things as a head coach. You know, so Cam is not in that Zach Wilson realm, at least just from year one. He improved a lot as the year went on, and I think I'm really excited for what he's going to bring to this group, particularly the defense, in which you see what he's done with both the Jets and 49ers defenses, and they've really improved, and they were working with scraps, really, the 49ers were this year. So I'm particularly excited about what he's going to bring defensively and try to see if they can change things up offensively, which, of course, they bring in Brian Daboll in as the OC, in which there's a lot of, what's going to happen there. Is it going to be him, or is it going to be Cliff Kingsbury, or who's it going to be? Um, I actually don't mind the Dables bringing him in as OC. I do find it funny that the two former New York coaches are coming in now as the
That's true.
as the head coach and the OC. I do find that kind of hilarious a little bit. But I do like Dable coming in, and I know one thing people are pointing to is just like him working with running quarterbacks like Josh Allen and Jackson Dart, and Cam isn't necessarily in that mold. I think he's going to be able to work fine with that. If I remember right, he was wanting Cam Ward last year. Now, of course, Cam was the de facto number one quarterback, but it seemed like that's who he was kind of wanting to come in. And there's all that talk about, will the Giants trade up to one and go and try to get Cam? He's very familiar with Cam. I'm excited to see what he can do with Cam and really kind of try to develop him. So, like, yeah, I'm on board with the solid hire. I'm on board with giving him another shot. It's a little bit different market, the Titans to the Jets market. So you don't have to worry about just like the constant hounding of that New York media market each and every week. Which I'm sure. I mean, like, listen, I'm sure New York coaches, they'll shrug it off, but I guarantee you they will probably say like, hey, it's a headache every time, whether it's good or bad. So yeah, I'm all for it. I actually like a mentor to the Ravens. That's kind of the guy I kind of
Yeah.
I made that connection. I kind of felt like I would not be surprised if he was ended up being the guy there, and then you just see all these other openings pop up, and you're like, oh boy, is that going to actually happen?
Right. There were a lot of options out there. Ryan, before we go into mentor, if I can circle back on Brian Dable.
Okay.
Because I am and never have been a Brian Dable guy. I have long thought Brian Dable was incredibly overrated as a coach. I thought that, Josh Allen is probably the reason for Brian Dable having the success that he had. He then went on to New York, basically had one season where he was able to get enough Daniel Jones in that one season in 2022, right? It was Dable's first year there. Um, I think people treat that Daniel Jones season in memory almost like Sam Darnold is
Mm-hmm.
right now. That's not the case. Like it was nowhere near as good as what Sam Darnold currently is. This year at the Colts in three less games, he had four more touchdowns and about 100 less passing yards they had in that season. He basically just took the ball out of Daniel Jones's hands. And I think that a lot of it was him just strapping himself to Josh Allen, who's a super mega star during his breakout and development, and that you reap the rewards from that success. So, Ryan, I am rooting for you. Hopefully, Cam Ward can just do what Josh Allen did. I don't think Brian Dable is the reason for it if it does happen. I've never been a Brian Dable guy. But Ryan, I'm rooting for you. But unfortunately, because I feel like because you're Ryan, I feel like that means this is gonna go terribly. Really, that's kind of the way
The
this
track
podcast
record.
goes sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I love the Jesse Minter hire though. I think that I, the Ravens were one of the few teams I looked at and I said you should probably go with a defensive coordinator hire here. I feel like the offense kind of can run itself a little bit. I do hope you hire a very good offense coordinator. I think they did. Um, but really, they needed that defense to get sorted itself back out, though. And I think that when you come from a team who for so long has had a special teams coordinator, head coach, kind of that, we talk about the CEO head coach style. I don't know if you will totally want to like upset that and all of a sudden totally change the entire way the coaching staff functions. Even though it will be all new guys, a lot of the same players though, and kind of the structure they're used to. So no, I think that he is one of these young minds who a lot of people around the league seem very excited about. So I am very much excited to give him that chance. And we'll see how it goes. I think he's a guy who does have the upside to make things happen. And hopefully he's the guy that can lead this team over the top.
Yeah, I definitely kind of thought was just like the Harbaugh kind of connection that he has. It kind of felt like that was going to be somebody that they were going to talk to, and he kind of comes from that Harbaugh, Mike Macdonald type of tree that's kind of sprouted from the Michigan days, and
Yeah.
just kind of like them going to work at Michigan and then them going to Baltimore and work for John, and it kind of felt like that was going to happen. I'm with you. I think you don't want to transition too far away from the CEO type of head coach type that you've had, and just like keep that same vibe. It's a different guy. It's a little bit younger. I kind of felt like that's where they were going to kind of go, and that's what ended up
Yeah.
happening. So yeah.
And I think that the gym connection is interesting because I think that there is a lot of good in the idea of, look, you had so much success. I understand the idea of wanting to almost promote internally. This is not doing that. This is getting a new voice in, but he has ties to that history. So it's almost the best of both worlds in a way, right? It's almost gonna be like
Hmm.
a guy who understands the culture, understands the familiarity of like it's gonna feel Baltimore Ravens still without going and just promoting a guy. Because I do think you need new ideas in there, right? So you're gonna
Yes.
get a guy who comes from a different background, comes from a different place, has new ideas, but also has a similar vibe. And I think all that's kind of a perfect marriage for the spot.
Yeah, I think it does. So I'm excited for you to get a guy in there that was on definitely on your list and trying
Yeah.
to get them there again. Happy that neither of us have Matt Nagy as our head coach.
That's the most important part.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they could hire somebody off the street just as long as it's not Matt Nagy. Please don't.
Look, I've got many accolades in fantasy football and Madden, right? I could have had this job over Matt Nagy.
Oh man, yeah. So we're both happy about that. But yeah, lots of other coaches have been hired here in this span. The McCarthy going to Pittsburgh, Kubiak going to the Raiders. It seems like Jeff Halfley going to the Dolphins is one to kind of take note of. He was a guy that was sought after. Stefanski going to Atlanta, and also Todd Monken going to Cleveland, and Jim Schwartz just saying, "I'm done. I'm out."
The most Browns thing ever, right? But I don't know, man. You're the Browns. I feel like, okay, Ryan, remember a couple years ago when Houston hired the guy before Lovey Smith, right? I think it was that guy, Lovey Smith, and then D'Amico Ryans.
Hmm.
I cannot remember that guy's name at all. But I feel like we all knew the moment he was hired, it was a 1 year deal and you were going to get fired. Todd, buddy, I think that might be where you're at.
Yeah, this definitely has similar vibes there too, and also I think it's just comical that the Browns are so insistent on whoever's coming in to try to keep Jim Schwartz as the DC, and then you hire Monken, and then Schwartz like, "Yeah, okay, I hate you guys, I'm done, I'm out."
Good, good on Jimmy. Like, good on Jim Schwartz, man. You're way too good of a defensive coordinator. These Browns teams, they've been crap for a long, long, long. Okay, they've been crap for a very long time, right? I'm talking about like the recent chunk of time that they've been crap, like the Watson era, Baker to now, right? Kind of range.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
the defenses have been really good, and they're
Yes.
anchored obviously by Miles Garrett and Denzel Ward, right? But like Jim Schwartz has been the leader of those defenses. They've been really good. Jim Schwartz, when he was the Eagles, really, really good. I would love for him to be defensive coordinator of the Ravens. Think that would be great. My dream was Stefanski head coach, Jim Schwartz defensive coordinator. That was like my big pitch, right? Obviously that didn't happen. But you know what though, Ryan? The more I think about it, I think Monken gets a couple. I think he gets to be the guy who coaches for the entirety of the remainder of the Deshaun Watson contract situation. And then whenever that is off the books, you fired Monken, you're finally free of the shackles you put yourselves in like 4 years ago, right at this point. Um, and like the new guy gets a fresh start. So Monken hired to be fired, but whatever. So that's just how
Yeah.
it goes sometimes.
Yeah, it's just how it goes. Cleveland doing Cleveland things. That never changes.
Nope, it really
um,
doesn't.
No, it really doesn't. Yeah, I'm really curious to see where Schwartz ends up now. There's a lot of good DC openings that are opening up. You got the Philly job opened up, you got the Baltimore job, you got the San Francisco job now opened up. And it seems like Schwartz's defense always gave Shanahan's offenses fits. So
Yeah,
it's just like, you know what? Let's just get this guy away from opposing teams. Let's just get him on our staff so he can cause other teams fits and not mine.
yeah.
That'd probably be the smart idea right there. Um, so yeah, the coaching carousel, I mean, it has been absolutely crazy, and we still got openings left, and those numbers are definitely going to go up. Uh, let's talk about the Super Bowl a little bit, and let's pivot there. And let's go talk about these two teams. And I guess let's start off. Let's talk about the Patriots here a little bit. Let's talk about the Patriots here and like them going to this Super Bowl and just kind of like talking about them showing up, being a team that I think nobody expected to be here, huge underdog, a team that had a first year coach in Vrabel coming back as kind of like the prodigal son in a way, after being a player there for so many years ago, and leads the team in his first year back to the Super Bowl, and really under crazy circumstances too, because just like doing some research and all this stuff, they're the sixth team that reached the Super Bowl after having five or fewer wins in the previous season, and the last team to win a Super Bowl like this was 2001
Rams?
Patriots.
Oh, Patriots. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you make of this Patriots team as they head into Super Bowl 60 on Sunday?
I think the thing that I find incredibly tricky with them is the if this was college football, Ryan, and we had to kind of do this by committee and who we're putting in the BCS bowl games here, I don't think they have the resume to be in the top two, right? Like if this was old style college football where like you just pick two teams for that finals, I think 12 teams, yes, for sure. But I think if it was like the BCS where it was two teams, they're not in my final two. You look at this lineup, Ryan. Let me read you the teams they beat: Miami, Carolina, Buffalo, New Orleans, Tennessee, Cleveland, Atlanta, Tampa, Jets, Bengals, Giants, Ravens, Jets, Dolphins. There is one quality win on that entire schedule. Um, that's not good.
Yeah,
And then you look at their playoff track, and it was a decimated Chargers team where, by the way, they could barely move the football. They win 16-3. A Texans team where CJ Stroud, good on New England's defenses, they did put pressure on him and force some turnovers, but also CJ just was not functioning. He looked like a glitch out there. And
yeah,
then you had the Broncos with a backup quarterback in a snowstorm. I just don't have any reason to believe in this team, Ryan. I have been saying this for a very long time. I do not buy into these Patriots, and they keep on just derping their way along here. And could they derp a Super Bowl win? They might. If Sam Darnold poops himself, like we know Sam Darnold could, they could win the Super Bowl. And I would say, man, you went this entire season just playing nobody,
yeah.
which is incredible. I cannot remember a situation to this extreme of a team where I look at it and man, wow, you played no one and you're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. It's funny. I did have one of those prop bets in there. It's like it's joke, obviously, but it's like, will Sam Darnold see a ghost in this game? Um,
He might. He might.
oh, he's gonna be having flashbacks in New York. But no, yeah. I mean, this Patriots schedule. I was, one thing that stood out. Based on DVOA, they had the third easiest schedule since '78, which that include the '91 Bills
Wow.
and the '99 Rams, tying it to them.
Okay.
That those teams, had easier roads compared to the Patriots, but the Patriots' circumstances with what happened here really kind of helped this road to be a little bit easier. You just take a look at it. I mean, you got three tough defenses here that they've had to face. I mean, you face three of the top five in total defenses.
Yeah.
So when you have that road, you're probably going to be looking a little bit derpy, but also just taking a look at the other teams' offenses that they played in there. Chargers missing some key guys. Herbert kept on getting sacked. Offense line was a mess. Texans, like you said, C.J. Stroud was a mess. No Nico Collins. And then in Denver, you had the snowstorm, and then you had Bo Nix getting hurt the week before. So, and it's a little bit different road than those other teams and that 91 Bills and 99 Rams. But that you make the Super Bowl and your path is determined by the circumstances and just like what happens, like all these different variables that I mean you don't know what's going to happen. I mean they probably didn't know if they had to face Denver that Bo Nix was going to get hurt the week before. They probably didn't know that hey a wild snowstorm was going to come through that day either. So it's just like these runs are made by variables and the variables they've had have kind of made this run a little bit easy despite them having to face three of the top five total defenses.
Yeah, I do think though that like I would not say the offense particularly passed any of the tests, if you know what I'm saying, as far as
Right.
facing those
Yeah.
defenses. Like they scored 16 against the Chargers. And again, absolutely top five defense, they're great. You only scored 16 though, and you're a Super Bowl team. They scored 28 against Houston, but man, do they have a lot of possessions with some very good field position, right? Like
Hmm.
I and then only 10 again, it was in the blizzard, and there was definitely coaching decisions that were being made by Vrabel that were going to lead to them not scoring more points, but also you only scored 10. So I have a hard time letting them off the hook too much, even though you're right. They did. They played very tough defenses and they found ways to win what was presented in front of them. But I can use all of that and moving forward, say, I don't know how you're going to do against this very good defense because Seattle is another very good defense. And I think if you only score 16 against the Seattle defense, I don't think you're winning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the average that Seattle, had is they were the team that they gave up the fewest points per game. They gave up around 16. So I mean, there you go. There's your 16 right there. And then I think
Yeah.
the other part of it is like Drake May. I mean, he's put himself in that MVP conversation with how well he's played this year. I mean, we can go over the stats, as many times as we want to, but you just take a look at one thing that's carried over from the regular season to now is the sack numbers. He's been sacked 47 times. Will Campbell's definitely had some bright spots, but he's also had some rookie moments at left tackle. And you just take a look at the three matchups they've had. Sacked 15 times, so that's comes out at an average of 5 per game. And you also fumbled 6 times, had a tipped interception, was clean in that different game. But again, you had Vrabel making those decisions like, hey, we're not gonna do anything too crazy here. But he kept the ball clean. He did what he had to do, and it is hard to do that in a snowstorm,
Hmm.
with that variable. But I mean,
Definitely.
he's been rough in the playoffs. Hasn't been the best. This explosive Patriots offense that we saw for a lot of this season hasn't played a factor. I mean, just taking a look at it, like they're one of the more explosive teams in the league with their offense. With passing. We know about the deep passing, and then the running. The running has been good. Ramondre Stevenson, to bring him up, he's had an excellent last few weeks. Um, but I think a lot of that is this defense has really kept this Patriots team afloat, and they've been playing some really stingy defense here as of late too. To take some lessons from the counterparts that they've played. They've played some really top level defense too.
They have, but again, it was a broken Chargers offense. It was a CJ Stroud glitching out, and again, they got a lot of pressure on Stroud. And it was Jared Stidham in a snowstorm. I don't know how much credit I can give their defense. I don't know. They deserve
I,
some. They deserve some
I will say the Broncos' offensive line was definitely better than both the Texans and Chargers. Like so
for sure.
that they do got two all pro guys and Bowles and Minerts and McGlinchey, so they got some dudes up there. But yeah,
Yeah. And if you look at scoring defense on the season, they were fourth. So like they were a very, very high-end defensive unit as well. Seattle was first, right? And so if this is going to be a defensive struggle, I prefer Seattle's defense over New England's defense. I prefer Seattle's offense over New England's offense. So I think you can kind of know where I'm going here. But I will say though, as I mentioned at the top, Ryan, there is the big X factor here of Sam Darnold, where it's like everything we have seen from him this season, everything we saw from him last season, with the exception of Week 18 game and the first playoff game. If you were to remove those two games, Sam Darnold has had two incredible years. But Ryan, just transition us to the Seattle side of things here. What if Sam Darnold has one of those games? What if Sam Darnold's seeing ghosts? I don't know how you come back from that. Like if he is what CJ Stroud was in the divisional round, then
yeah,
it's over.
yeah. I think one thing to take a look at with Darnold in particular, and the season's been kind of like a microcosm of his highs and his lows. Um, really good to start out the season, kind of a rough patch to end the season, and the defense has really helped things out with them as far as that goes. But yeah, I mean that could very well be the case. I remember us talking about just the amount of giveaways that he had at one point, and it was not good. I mean that, but to his credit, in the playoffs and against a very tough Rams defense too that sent a lot of pressure
Yeah.
compared to last year in that playoff game against them when he was in a Vikings jersey. He messed them up when they were getting after him. Now they did sack him a couple times, but whenever he was faced with pressure, he was not scared. He put the ball exactly where he wanted to put the ball and where it needed to go, and they made the Rams pay for it. So will we get that Sam Darnold, who in the biggest game of his career, arguably up until this point, who did well against that Rams defense, will that Sam Darnold show up in this big game and this now the biggest game of his career? Or will it
The big
be,
game.
yeah, the big game, literally the big game, or will he revert back to what we seen in the latter part of the season, what we saw, you know, with the Vikings there last season? Will we see that one?
Ryan, the origins of this podcast, Ryan, included an NFL draft preview and you and Peter talking about college football and me sitting there. And I became a believer in this quarterback out of USC to the point where I thought he should have been the first overall pick in his draft. I cannot sit here, Ryan, and not pay this off for our viewers. I believe in Sam Darnold, Ryan. How can I not? I'm in. I think he'll be fine, Ryan. I don't think he'll torch him. Like in that Rams game where he went for 346 and three, and the ball was just going all over the yard. I don't expect that. I'm expecting more of a like 250 and two kind of a game. The important number is the zero picks. The important number is the zero fumbles, right? Like though, let Ken Walker do his thing also, right? Like no
Yes.
Charbonnet, that hurts. My heart's broken for that. But Walker's been really good lately. Let him continue to feed Ken Walker. I think, by the way, this is like a bit of the reason why you want to have two running backs, not just because, oh, well, if one gets hurt, but also it's kept Walker fresh. Like Walker right now
Mm-hmm.
looks fantastic. Compare that to some of these running backs we see late in the season after they've had oodles of carries, 300 carries to this point, right? So, no, I see it, Ryan. I can't not say Sam Darnold, Ryan, at this point.
We're paying it off like like the MCU has paid off some stuff, and has at least we're paying it off with this, unlike some
Hey
recent stuff.
Darnold, hey Darnold, I'm on your left.
Oh man, yeah. No, I think a lot. This is going to be fascinating to see how this is going to go. Um, but also he's been paired with a really good play caller in Kubiak, and that's a variable that we didn't know how good he was going to be. I think all credit to Mike Macdonald, who learned the lessons from his first year and really kind of changed swap things out from Grubb and brought in Kubiak and say, hey, we're going to do this. And then also, I think to go talk about the defense, probably the best unit out of the units we have left in in the season left. Um, I think for the system that McDonald wants to run, it takes a little bit to get that thing going, and try to get things underway and all that stuff. In year two, you're going to be able to do a little bit more. You're going to be able to unlock certain things, certain terminology. Things will become second nature at that point. And then also, when you add a guy like Nick Imanwori, to this unit, it really kind of helps unlock things. And like I remember us kind of talking about like, could this guy be a Kyle Hamilton like guy in this defense? And with the way he's played, it definitely has gotten the feel of like, okay, he's actually kind of learned some lessons of like how he used Hamilton early on in his career, and like, okay, here's how I'm going to use Eamon Warrior. I'm not going to do the same stuff I did with Hamilton when he was coming out. And so just seeing the way this defense has been unlocked here in year two to being this unit where it allowed the fewest points in the league. It's become one of the best run defenses by NFL pros metrics and all of football. You know, to see it get to this point is really kind of astonishing. And also looking at the Patriots offense, it's kind of like, uh-oh, how are we going to go against this unit?
I don't have an answer for you there, Ryan. I don't know how you attack this unit. So if you're looking to me for answers, I got bad news, Patriots coaching staff. You're gonna go ask somebody else because it's a solid across the board unit. It's not one of these defenses where it's like good against one, bad against the other. No, they're really good on both sides of the ball, and they can make plays. And look, anything can happen. You know, like I said, I think it would come really from a Darnold collapse. I don't expect the Seahawks defense to collapse.
No.
Um, I should pull up. I mean, I guess they just gave up 27 to the Rams last week,
Yeah.
and they gave up 37 to the Rams about a month ago. Prior to that, Ryan, the last time they gave up 20 plus was the Titans game. So good on you. That sure is random. I
uh,
mean, this is a solid unit unless you face Cam Ward, apparently. But who isn't?
yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. That's definitely a rando stat. I would have expected Titans to be the team that came out of your mouth. I would expect like somebody else, but I'll take it. You know, against a top defense like the Seahawks, sure. Um, but I think also with the Seahawks, I mean, we've seen this here in recent Super Bowls. Like we flash back to the Eagles defense last year, where they just had different guys that they could bring on the defensive line and just sub in like different body types. And the Seahawks are in that kind of same mold up front where, like, hey, they can have Demarcus Lawrence out there, or Boye Mafe, or Owusu, or on the interior, you got Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, who's taking a step up, Jaron Reed. They have all these different guys and all these different body types that they're able to put in there for different scenarios. And also, when they need to make a play, when they absolutely need a stop, they, you know, they can sub out those guys and get in their best guys and make sure they're fresh and say like, hey, go get us a stop or go get us the ball back. You know, it's kind of in that same mold of what we've seen from recent defenses when they're just able to have a bunch of guys up front that they can sub in, sub out, and wreak havoc. But it also
I think
helps
that's
that the
interesting.
defense has been good on the back end too.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting point. And gosh, it goes all the way back to the Giants, right?
Yeah,
With the OC Umanura, Justin Tuck, Michael Strahan, like
yeah,
that group of guys, right? Where, what was the one with Matthias, like Kiwanuka or something,
yes, yes.
right? Like the fact that I just pulled four defensive linemen from like the '07 Giants tells you how good and deep that team was. I wonder if that is going to be a trend we see roster building wise, where maybe you can never. It's been a thing for forever. You can't have enough pass rushers. The Baltimore Ravens only had one. He played safety. So you kind of need the opposite of that. But I wonder if we see teams really try to maybe not necessarily spend their top picks on pass rushers, but like spend way more round two, round three picks on pass rushers. I can see that and kind of just continually keep those waves of fresh bodies going.
Yeah, I definitely think if there's one trend I think you can take a look at from these teams that have been and that were in the Final Four and they're now playing in this game, I think that's definitely a trend that you can take a look at. It's like, okay, we've seen the Seahawks do it and be successful. They get to the Super Bowl. We've seen the Eagles do it. They get to the Super Bowl and they win it. So it's like, if it happens once, it's like, okay, it happened once. If it happens twice, it's like, okay. And maybe that's the launching point. It's like, okay, it happened twice now. I think we should take note of this and try to build up this defense and really just go all in on building up the defensive line and just being able to have like different body types and just saying like, hey, we don't have a set type at edge. We can go get a strong, powerful edge rusher who can also set the edge, but we also can get the speed guy off the edge that's a little bit bendy, has a little bit more twitch. So I think that's definitely going to be something to take note of, especially if Seattle wins this one. It's like, two of the last Super Bowl winners would have had that same kind of mold. You kind of take a look at that. Like, okay, we kind of need to take a look at this, especially if you're a team that has a defensive coach. If you're a team that has a defensive coach like, like Mentor now or Sala or some of these other guys that hire defensive coaches as their new head coach, they could take a look at it as like, okay, we see a strategy here to go get to the Super Bowl, and we've seen defense, even though offenses win, or what get people watching, defenses still help win championships in big ways.
Well, and
So
not necessarily even the winning team for the Super Bowl, Ryan, but 2 years before that, right? The 49ers offense before that one, right? Where you had a whole
yes,
rotation with, you had Bosa in there at that point. You had Eric Armstead still there. You had another defensive tackle whose name I'm blanking on right now.
is it Buckner?
Um, no, he was already in Indy at that point.
Okay.
There was another one though, because it's part of the reason why they
Um,
were willing to trade away Buckner in that range. There's another guy though, and then you look at the year before that was Philly, who lost the Super Bowl there too, right? And then I don't think you really necessarily say the Rams or the Bengals that year. But you go before that though, when the Tampa Bay won the Super Bowl, and they were all over Mahomes, and you had at that point in time it was Joe Tryon was on one side. You had Shaq Barrett on one side. JPP was in there. Gerald McCoy, I think, was still in those teams at that point. I think, or no, not Gerald McCoy. Vita Vea was in there, right? So, like,
yes.
again, you had a variety of guys who could get at the quarterback. So, yeah, this has been a thing for a while, actually. And I think it might be one of those things that does fly a little under the radar. Having that variety of pass rushers, a variety of defensive linemen goes a long way.
Yeah. I will say one thing to take note of with Seattle's defenses, and this is, going with Drake May and just like how well he's been able to use his legs, particularly. I mean, you had the one play where he just called a shot last week to ice the Denver game.
Yeah.
Is that then Seattle's defense is not that great against quarterbacks that have scrambled, and all that stuff. As far as the run metrics, that's the one where they're not the best at, and they gave up a little bit more to those types of scrambles. So we could definitely see Drake May try to do that. I think I saw this stat too of like Drake and using his legs. So he's rushed for 125 this postseason so far. The only person closest to that in the next gen stats era is Mahomes, twice.
Wow.
2019 when he ran for 143, and in 2023, so 3 years ago, when he ran for 128.
Huh.
So
And that's interesting. I think Mahomes is actually a really good rushing comp for Drake May, and really might be a really good comp overall for kind of his style of play. I'm not saying he is Patrick Mahomes. Chiefs fans, calm down. But the stylisticness of the play, a guy who does take some chances, thinking of a younger Mahomes a little bit in terms of big arm strength. And yeah, he's not running like Lamar Jackson. They're not designing a bunch of runs for him, but there will be a designed run or two in there, and there will definitely be. He has no hesitation if the play is breaking down and there's a lane, go ahead and take your ground.
yeah, I remember there was one play last week against Denver where it was a very strategic slide where like I think it was like right as like I don't think they got the field goal out of it, but Drake being very aware of the time and he slid with exactly 1 second left. Like okay, I don't have time to, you know. So
Yes, I think it was the end of the first half, wasn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly what I'm thinking of. Yeah. So I think also to bring up field goals and special teams. I think special teams will play a factor here too because these two teams have excellent returners and Marcus Jones and Rashid Shaheed.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, both of them.
I mean, the Shaheed move midseason has been an amazing move. Looking back on it now,
Yeah. Yeah. No, he's definitely had a lot of very big splash. And like you said, especially in the return game. And yeah, Marcus Jones, the guy who's flown it, he is such a good returner that they tried to use him on offense a little bit.
yeah,
Right? Like he's a corner. And they've had him line up a wide receiver a little bit. It hasn't happened much. I'm not sure if it's happened at all even this season at all. I don't know for sure. But I definitely know in the past. He has. So it's, a weapon for sure on both sides of things. I think the kicking game, New England's kicker, I can't remember his name. It's a weird name. He was really good this year.
oh
It's a
Borealis or,
weird name.
or
Something like
something like
that.
that.
Yep, something like that. Hmm. Yeah, he was really good this year. And then Seattle, I'm currently completely blanking on his. Oh, Dick Dixon's the punter. He's a very good punter, by the way. So we can see if you're excited about punting games here, Ryan. Michael Dixon's one of the best punters in the league. Jason Myers. So you have a veteran punter on the Seattle side too.
Yeah. So yeah, special teams I think will be a factor. In fact, I'm going to call a shot here. I would not be surprised if we saw a big time special teams return from either one of those guys that is very impactful for this game. I would not be surprised.
I don't I don't think they're going to let Jones have a chance on a punt.
That's true. So it would probably lean in that case to Shaheed maybe.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if you're a Patriots fan, try not to have what happened to the 49ers on that first
Right.
play.
Right. Where it was a opening play dagger, right? Yeah, you don't want that to happen to you.
No. So no, yeah, this I think we've kind of you kind of leaned shown where like you're probably leaning towards Seattle. I think I'm leaning
Yeah.
towards Seattle too. With all this, it just feels like with this Patriots offense, it is not built to go against this tough defense, even though they've already faced three tough defenses before. This defense does feel different with what they've been able to do all season long, and so I think we're probably going to go with Seattle here to
Yeah.
win it.
Yeah. I'm going Seattle. I think Seattle scores, let's go with 27. And I think New England scores, I'll give them 17.
I think I'm going to go 24-13. I think I'm going to go
Yeah.
with that. This is probably going to be a low scoring game with both these teams. Um, Stats I won't blow anybody out the water. I don't think unless a lot
Yeah,
of
this this is not a game to bet the overs.
no, no. Although JSN, he could probably potentially have 100 yards. That's something we haven't talked about is JSN just being absolutely dominant this year, and the matchup between him and Christian Gonzalez and or Carlton Davis.
Yeah, that's going to be really probably the biggest one-on-one matchup of the day is JSN versus Gonzalez because Gonzalez is a top tier corner as well.
Yeah,
But man, JSN has just been on a whole nother world this year.
I know it's been amazing to watch. Just seeing like his development, and him getting to this range where he had over 1,700 yards this year. Like he was very close to touching 2,000. So,
Yeah,
um, it's kind of crazy. So I just had a couple of coaching things pop up here for my ESPN
yeah,
notifications. Um, so Arizona, it looks like they're targeting Rams offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur as their next head coach. So that will lead the Arizona job and get that job filled. And then the 49ers are going to be set to hire Raheem Morris as their next defensive coordinator.
Oh, okay. That one threw me for a little bit of a loop. He's been a really good defensive coordinator everywhere he's been. For Raheem Morris. So that's an interesting one. It's not Jim Schwartz,
No.
unfortunately. So sorry, Jim. I guess you gotta tuck your tail, go back to Cleveland or go to Baltimore. Um, hey, I want more and more of these defensive coordinator jobs to fill up, and then Jim Schwartz is like, I have to go to the Ravens. Um, no, Mike LaFleur, that's an interesting one. I thought that he was a name who we'd see a little bit more of getting rumors because I feel like his name kind of cooled off a little bit places. But obviously, brother of Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. He was with the Jets for a
Yes.
hot cup of coffee, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was with your Titans, right?
I don't know if he ever crossed paths with the Titans. I don't know if
Or
he
am I
was
just
ever on the
think,
staff.
or am I just thinking of his brother?
You're probably just thinking. I think. Yeah, you're thinking of Matt. I
Oh
think.
gosh, this is gonna be so confusing.
No. Yeah. No. It is also kind of crazy that out of all the Rams guys that we saw got interviews with, Shieldhouse and Shula, that he's the one that ended up getting a job. But also, it just might be those guys are selective. They're selective about the jobs that are open and maybe want to wait a year. But it is kind of weird that out of those three guys, LaFleur was the guy to get a job, and guys like Shieldhouse and Shula, who had a lot of praise and had a lot of interviews, are going to be back in LA for another year. It seems.
Yeah,
So
And Grant, I don't think those guys were going to just take the Arizona job though.
yeah, no, yeah,
They would rather go to Ben Johnson or not wait another year.
yeah, yeah. Which in that case, it'll be kind of interesting to see what jobs will open up next year, and see if if they're kind of like Ben, in which like okay, maybe we'll take that one, or maybe they'll stick around for another year. So I mean, the Ben Johnson route worked. It definitely worked.
Yeah.
You see, he's in Chicago. He's thriving, having success.
Yep.
So
God's quarterback. Like that's
yeah,
huge, right? Arizona doesn't have that to offer you.
no, nope, definitely not. So no, yeah, coaching carousel's been crazy. Super Bowl, we're both going Seahawks here. Matt, you got any closing thoughts before we head on out of here?
Just looking forward to that Doomsday trailer, Ryan. That's probably the number one thing on my mind at that point.
Yeah. Oh man, I know I had it in the spreadsheet. I know I had. Which trailer will we see? Will we see Doomsday? Will we see Brand New Day? Or will we see both? I even offered up that option. Um,
I don't know if we see both. I think Marvel takes one slot, and I think it's a juicy Doomsday trailer that actually tells us a little bit about what this movie's actually about.
I will say the one reason why I had both is because that movie is coming out before Doomsday, so you're gonna have to.
Okay, then maybe we do see both.
But also it is Sony. It is Sony that's distributing
Okay,
that. So
sure. So it's technically a different. Sure. Okay,
it,
so I'll go with both then, Ryan. Thank you for helping me with that decision. I'll put both into that spreadsheet now.
no, yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. I'm also anticipating it being like they're gonna show like 30 seconds of it and then like go watch a full teaser online type of thing.
Yeah, and it'll be like a 2.5 minute on there.
Yeah. So
And
I'm fully
hopefully they
expecting
tell
that.
us, I don't know, something.
Yeah,
I don't need to know like the whole plot, but just give me like something.
yeah.
Why is
Don't tell
that?
us if Loki dies or not.
No, no. I'm glad. Spoilers. He came in the Royal Rumble number 2, and he died
Oh,
immediately.
uh,
Yeah,
well,
yeah. So that was a real shame.
that's a huge shocker. He died 5 minutes in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a guy in a mask though that totally took him out. So we don't know who that is, and yet to be revealed. My anticipation is probably that's Thor. I mean, I think that probably makes the most storyline sense. Good hair, got a beard. That's my expectation.
Yeah,
If you
or
know,
it's
you
just gonna be
know.
Thanos and he's just using the Reality Stone. Maybe that's.
That would be wild.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened once. Wouldn't be surprised if it happened
Yeah,
again. So,
fair enough.
no, I'm excited about that. It's gonna be exciting to see finally a little bit something kind of shows like what's gonna like not tell us story wise what's gonna happen, but give us more of what than what we've gotten already. Just give us more of that stuff. But yeah, I'm excited about that, and excited to watch the full thing online after giving us 30 seconds. So essentially, kind of like these teaser trailers that they've been doing. Just kind of like here's a little bit, but go watch the full thing online. All right, everybody, that's gonna do it for us here. Matt, fun as always talking about the Super Bowl, and we'll see if our predictions are going to come true. Seattle's going to come out on top. I'm sure Seattle. I honestly think the Seattle fan base would love that they got this matchup, even though it's different teams. I'm sure they
Yeah,
love the fact that they get the Patriots and can finally like not totally like 100% avenge, that Super Bowl loss, but
there is nobody at all who was in that game that's in this game, right?
no, I would imagine not. No,
I would think
it's
not
been
either.
years.
No, I was even thinking like, could there be? Well, Josh McDaniels,
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Josh there?
That would be the only guy. That would be the only guy that would make sense.
Gosh, I feel like he's always there.
No, yeah. Yeah, I think that's the underrated part. I think Seattle
Yeah.
probably wants us just as much considering the matchup. So we'll definitely have to see and next Sunday see what happens there in Santa Clara. And I'm sure Seattle, they would also love it winning it at the 49er stadium. Something fun about that, winning that at a division rival
Yep.
stadium.
Yep.
So there's a couple added bonuses here for Seattle in winning this. So that'll do it for us here, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this edition of the Views from the 573. We'll be back and talking about this Super Bowl and see what happens in this game and talk about all the commercials and all that stuff. Should be a fun ride. But until then, everybody, hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you guys soon.